30-minute presentation of major news, views, interviews, comments, and analysis about Liberia, Africa, and our global village. Today is Tuesday, November 27, 2018. My name is Zokwe Besler-Konin anchoring this edition of the program. In the headlines, Ministry of Commerce announces the arrival of sufficient petroleum product till January 2019. 16 days of activism kicks off in Monrovia as President George Manolia terms sexual gender-based violence as the most shameful human rights violation. House of Representatives passes motion of contempt against the publisher of the Hot Pepper newspaper, Philibert Brown. And away from Liberia, an average 137 women across the world are killed by a partner or family every day, according to a new data released by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNOC. These stories plus many other developments are all coming up in the program Lntv News Live. But first, we are taking a short break to be back with the faces of the newsmakers. Welcome back to the program Lntv News Live. Liberia on Monday joined its global counterparts to commence the observance of 16 days of activism as President Weah called for united effort to rid the country of the menace of gender-based violence, GBV, and violence against women. Speaking at the Antoinette Tubman Stadium during the official commencement of the 16 days of activism campaign, President Weah described GBV as the most shameful human rights violation.
Violence in schools, workplaces, and communities is on the rise, and if nothing is done to curtail this ugly behavior, it will get worse. For far too long, impunity, silence, and stigma have allowed violence against women to escalate to pandemic proportions. It is sad to note that despite all of the many efforts put in place by government and our partners over the years to reduce this occurrence of gender-based violence, it remains a challenge. These horrible and shameful acts occurred everywhere, at home, at schools, at work, and in the communities at large. Gender-based violence takes many forms, such as sexual abuse in schools, sexual harassment at work, rape, wife beating, acid attack, child marriage, and human trafficking, amongst others. In my view, violence against women is the most shameful human rights violation. Gender-based violence does not only violate the basic human rights of our girls and our women, but also hamper productivity, reduces the values of our human capital, and undermines economic growth. This is why it is important that we all unite in our effort to rid our society of this menace.
President George Manolia, Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister Willimeto Sidita is calling for continued collaboration and advocacy against gender-based violence across Liberia. Minister Sidita said tackling gender-based issues in Liberia requires state actors, including civil society organizations, to step up their advocacy. The Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister made a call Monday at the Antoinette Tubman Stadium in Monrovia at the start of the 16 days of activism in Liberia.
We keenly recognize that gender-based violence remains a major threat to the human security of women, girls, boys, and children across Liberia and the world. However, Liberia's strive for the attainment of the fundamental objectives of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence continues to be greeted by stiff challenges. It may interest you to know that as of the periods January through September of 2017, a total of 892 GBV cases were reported, of which 506 were rape cases. In 2016 alone, a total of 1,413 gender-based violence cases were reported, among which 778 were rape cases. With these frightening statistics, it is glaringly evidential that the challenges of tackling gender-based violence in Liberia, especially the crime of rape, are steeply daunting, particularly when 97% of gender-based violence survivors in Liberia are women and girls. This plaguing trend suggests that women and girls are the most vulnerable to rape and different forms of gender-based violence across Liberia and the global world. Gauging from the few and many crushing challenges, we cannot overemphasize the profound significance of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister Willamette City. Meanwhile, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Liberia, Yakub El Hilo, read the special statement from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
Violence against women and girls is a global pandemic. It is a moral affront to all women and girls and to us all, a mark of shame on all our societies, and a major obstacle to inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development. At its core, violence against women and girls in all its forms is a manifestation of a profound lack of respect, a failure by men to recognize the inherent equality and dignity of women. It is an issue of fundamental human rights. The violence can take many forms, from domestic violence to trafficking, from sexual violence in conflict to child marriage, genital mutilation, and femicide. It is an issue that harms the individual but also has far-reaching consequences for families and societies.
Coordinator. The Ministry of Commerce has announced the arrival of over 1.4 million gallons of petroleum products in the country. In a press conference Monday, Commerce Minister Wilson Tape says this will boost the provision of petroleum products on the market till January 2019. Minister Tape made the disclosure in an Lntv interview.
Today, a tanker carrying 12,000 metric tons, approximately 1.4 million gallons, which is equivalent to 10 days supply, berthed last night, and by the close of the day, it should complete discharge. We are informed by Total that on Wednesday, another vessel is coming in with 4,000 metric tons, that is approximately 1.4 million. As a matter of fact, the 12,000 metric ton is about 4.8 million gallons. The 4,000 metric ton is about 1.4 million gallons. And that should be sufficient to carry us throughout the season around the middle of January.
Meanwhile, Minister Tape said the inspectors of the Ministry of Commerce will be out in the fields to regulate petroleum importers and camp boys.
And those people who are attempting to hoard the product, our inspectors are out. And when we come across you, the full weight of the law, we have to fall upon you. Nobody is supposed to sell gas in Monrovia for $3.70 or $580 Liberia. That's the price.
Campbell.
Well, those are the people who are outside of our control regime because they don't have a stable place. But we also are monitoring them to ensure that they sell the product for no more than $580 per gallon of gasoline.
But if they are caught,
if they are caught, I just told you the full weight of the law will fall on it. The importers to ensure that the product is available, it's affordable, and the prices are stable, even though we do not control the international prices of fuel. But the President has made a commitment that effort should be made to ensure that the prices are relatively stable.
Wilson Tape is Liberia's Minister of Commerce and Industry. House of Representatives plenary has passed a motion of contempt against Hot Pepper newspaper managing editor Philibert Brown. It followed his alleged refusal to appear before the lawmakers. Nimba County Representative Larry Yankwe read the motion.
Incessantly tried as a body duly constituted by the Constitution of Liberia to bring unlocated ground under the custody control of this other body in a friendly manner to elucidate further on some of his utterances concerning the missing $16 billion in this country, and having discovered that he deliberately shied away from facing this body or losing person to himself, considering that this body cannot afford to see its power being undermined in such a bizarre manner. Move and take a letter that Mr. Philibert Brown be invited under contempt to appear before this other body tomorrow to show cause why he cannot be here in contempt. Or stopping the work of this body.
Nimba County Representative Larry Yankwe. Well, if you have just joined us, this is a reminder that you are watching Lntv News Live, a 30-minute presentation of major news, views, interviews, comments, and analysis about Liberia, Africa, and our one world. Today is Tuesday, November 27. The year remains 2018. My name is Zokwe Beslo Conan, anchoring this edition of the program. Let's recap our major stories. Ministry of Commerce announces the arrival of sufficient petroleum product till January 2019. 16 days of activism kicks off in Monrovia as President George Manuel terms sexual gender-based violence as the most shameful human rights violation. House of Representatives passes motion of contempt against the publisher of the Hot Pepper newspaper, Philibert Brown. And away from Liberia, an average 137 women across the world are killed by a partner or family every day, according to a new data released by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNOC. Lntv News Live takes a short break to be back with more developments. Welcome back to Lntv News Live. Thanks for rejoining us. We continue with the program. A campaigner for women and girls' rights, Caroline Brown, says the impact of gender-based violence has devastating effects on the victims, including stigmatization. Reading a statement from the group, We Are Unprotected, Madam Brown called on government to take tougher stance against gender-based violence in Liberia.
We are here today to call attention to these issues and to request our government to take action. Basically, they must put their money where their mouth is. We are reminded by many cases, and I'm going to list a few. The case of man Noah who died in Banga, who was murdered in 1998, the marketeer. The travesty of justice in India Topa's case, 12 women who were publicly humiliated in Sino County in 2018 being accused of witchcraft. The case of the young girl who was raped by the former equip director
and he was granted medical leave. Today there's been no justice. Last year we witnessed the rape of a 13-year-old girl by her uncle who was a member of the legislature. Today there are many more cases. We could go on naming a lot of these cases. So we are here to remind all of us that women's rights are human rights and we need action.
Madam Caroline Brown is a campaigner for women and girls' rights. Meanwhile, a member of the group Fasia Harris called on women to always report cases of sexual, gender-based violence.
Basically, this campaign, we are only asking, right, for our rights to be protected as women and girls in Liberia. Is that okay? Is that something we want? We are asking that the government will protect us in schools. The government will protect our children while they go to school. Will ensure that those who have schools, who have organizations, protect women and girls. And don't allow women or girls to be raped or molested within the institution. And let's say, God forbid, excuse. What happened? God forbid, excuse if we say it happened to somebody. We want the right action to be taken, the person responsible to be brought to justice. Is that okay? Is that something that we want? That is why we have the We Are Unprotected. We have made several demands to government concerning rape and sexual gender-based violence in general, and to also look into the case that happened at the Modemi Academy. The children that are there, they are our sisters, they are Liberians, they are human beings, and they deserve all rights over their body. No man, no teacher, no supervisor is supposed to take advantage of our children when they go to school. And if it happens, and you know it happening, you need to report it. But when you're reporting it, we need to make sure that people who are reporting it to will take action. That nobody will sweep it under the table, right? So we say we are...
Fasia Harris is a campaigner of women and girls' rights from the group We Are Unprotected. Commercial drivers are calling on the government to reduce what they called increased license fees and the number of checkpoints on the highway. Speaking to Lntv News, the president of the Federation of Road Transport Union of Liberia, Papa Flomo, said about 10 drivers are arrested for staging protests against the situation.
There is a concern, they said there was a harassment on the road. Even when you come to what kind of harassment are you talking about? Well, you talk about child process, the licenses, then the people taking for the highway, they say those are all kind of licenses. Besides that, for a year to go to Kanta, you get over 20 checkpoints in the night. There's no free movement. Alright? So the guy told the police director, and the semi CC captain, that they were going to go slow, and which is a right. The only thing we will stop is for them to not take the street. Alright? They shouldn't take the national highway. But they have the car and all back there, sample, and I just got a call. The tear gas will just go in the car there, somehow travel in the car and they carry. But this is a situation, not only Bonkan, not only this country, all the country involved. So if they start like this, I don't think it's to try to handle the situation.
Papa Flomo is the president of the Federation of Road Transport Union of Liberia, FRTUL. Meanwhile, FRTUL Montserrat County Inspector General Anthony Colley called on the government to work along with drivers to remedy this situation.
I give appeal to the government to release my drivers. I'm here for them, and they call me a workshop, and I attend the workshop, and we sit down and we they give me either a copy or what we're supposed to do. I think you can see me now, there's a workshop t-shirt and show me.
So why your next option after they not release your people?
We are inviting the government to come in, or the inspection. The inspection is a suicide now. Every day we know in this country, it cannot be why CC me and Christmas coming, then the government put your inspection. And one thing that really got me that I don't understand what they say. They are taking my driver lesson. They say the first lesson.
Liberia Nurses Association, LNA, has concluded a 3-day national conference in Grand-Bassa County. LNA's second conference over the weekend was under the theme, "The role of a professional nurse is to encourage nurses to remain committed to serving humanity." We have a report.
The second national conference was aimed at reawakening nurses to their code of conduct. The 3 days reminded nurses to keep holding on to the oath they swore. Assistant Health Minister for Preventive Services, Madam Joyce Sherman, serving as guest speaker, admonished nurses to always remember that they are important to the healthcare services.
Outnumber the doctors, the exact number, I don't know. We are everywhere. We will go anywhere to care or to find a job. There is always a job for a nurse. Are we really what we say we are in the healthcare system? Are we out for the title or really into what it takes to do this job? Is it the white uniform, even though it's not white anymore, that draws us to this profession and not the dirt or the blood that stays on our clothes at the end of the day? No matter how educated you are, in my view, once a nurse, always a nurse.
Madam Gloria Stevens, President, Liberia Nurses Association, called on nurses to perform excellently at their job despite the numerous difficult challenges.
Nurses face the worst challenges. Nurses are deployed nationwide in remote parts of Liberia. What we can say is hats off to those who are working in the remote areas. Everyone feels the pinch of his own shoe, irrespective of difficult circumstances. Nurses are expected to perform excellently at their job sites. The urban areas are better than the rural areas, with poor road network, poor housing, and bad facilities. There should be a difference in the compensation that is given to those nurses that are assigned in the rural area.
Many thanks to Rachel Colley for that report. National Teachers Association of Liberia Secretary General Samuel Johnson is calling on the government of Liberia to allot 20% of the national budget towards education to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Johnson addressed a press conference Monday in Monrovia following his election at the Education International Africa Conference held in Abidjan, La Côte d'Ivoire.
At the conference, we were opportune to be elected as Education International Africa Zone 2 Executive Board member for Cape Verde, Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Saliyo, and Senegal. 7 countries are in Zone 2. Africa is divided into 6 zones, and we are in Zone 2. We attended the conference. Several things were discussed. Recommendation for the improvement of education in Africa, especially the Sustainable Development Goal number 4. By 2030, it should be achieved. It was not achieved in 2015. The education for all, the IFA goal, was not achieved. So this trip, we are fighting hard to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goal be achieved for every country. So this is why we are part of the Move for Education advocacy campaign, where government will allocate at least 20% of the national budget towards education within the 2019-2020 budget, so that global campaign for education will be able to increase Liberia budgetary support. When we started the advocacy at the beginning of the year, the GPE, through one of our members, who is now the Secretary General for all the teachers around the world, David Edward, who is member of GPE board, lobbied cooperated with the police, and they were able to add additional 5.9 million to the 11.9 million that were approved for Liberia, which the ministry is now using towards the early childhood development program.
Samuel Johnson is the Secretary General of the National Teachers Association of Liberia and TAL. Let's now bring you our foreign development. An average of 137 women across the world are killed by a partner or family member every day, according to new data released by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. They say it makes the home the most likely place for a woman to be killed. According to the BBC, more than half of the 87,000 women killed in 2017 were reported as dying at the hands of those closest to them. BBC says of that figure, approximately 30,000 women were killed by an intimate partner and another 20,000 by a relative. Africa was where a woman ran the greatest risks of being killed by their intimate partner or family member, the UN report says. It occurred at a rate of 3.1 deaths per 100,000 people. Asia had the greatest number of women killed by intimate partners or family members in 2017, with a total of 20,000. BBC said press coverage of women killed by another person on October 1, 2018 around the world counted 47 women reported killed apparently for gender-related reasons in 21 different countries. Most of these killings are still being investigated, and 3 Chinese nationals have been charged with attempting to bribe investigators working on an alleged ticketing scam in a massive Kenyan railroad project. Some $10,000 a day was being stolen in a scheme, local media say. Officers were allegedly offered a $5,000 bribe, the prosecutor says. The $3 billion Chinese-founded and operated railway line is Kenya's biggest infrastructure project since independence in 1963. It has, however, been hit by scandals since it launched in May 2017. Well, that does it from the foreign scene. Let's now recap major stories we have followed on the program. Ministry of Commerce announces the arrival of sufficient petroleum product till January 2019. 16 days of activism kicks off in Monrovia as President George Manuel Weah terms sexual, gender-based violence as the most shameful human rights violation. House of Representatives passes motion of contempt against the publisher of the hot paper newspaper, Philibert Brown. And away from Liberia, an average of 137 women across the world are killed by a partner or family every day, according to a new data released by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. Well, this is how we come to the end of the program, Lntv News Live. Many thanks to you all for your viewing role. Lntv News Live is a production of the television department of the Liberia Broadcasting System. This program comes on every Monday to Friday, with the early edition at 10 to 10:30 in the morning and the late edition at 8 to 8:30 in the evening. Many thanks to all of our reporters, correspondents, technicians, switchers, and editors for making this package a success. On behalf of the entire television team of the Liberia Broadcasting System, my name is Zokwe Veslo Conan. I've been anchoring this edition. Have a pleasant day. Bye-bye for now.